Pranajit, beautiful session. Bahu samichinam, dhanyavadah, namo namaha, punah milamah.
Punah milamah. Okay, Radhe Radhe everyone. Good morning, good evening. I hope you all had a wonderful weekend. We too had great blissful satsang at the temple, Sunday satsang as usual. And looking forward to today's class. So welcome to the Daily Wisdom from Bhagavad Gita class. Over to you, Nitinji. Radhe Radhe.
Thank you, Sandhya. And very warm welcome to all of you. Hope you're having a great start to your week and had a great weekend. Welcome to today's edition of Daily Wisdom from Bhagavad Gita. Originally, we had planned, but stars favored and we are able to have it today. So very warm welcome to all of you. Let's get started by invoking the blessings of God and Guru. Let me share my screen and we will get started. I know we have been talking about science and spirituality for a while. Now we will shift gears and get back to the Bhagavad Gita shlokas recaps that we are doing in chapter 3. So today I picked up 3.31 and we will get started with the discussion today. So let me share my screen. Are you able to see screen? Great. Okay, so we'll do our opening prayers and get started then. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadguru. Krishnam Vande Jagadguru. Okay, Radha Radha again. Good morning, good evening to all of you. Let's get started. I'm going to recite it and you're welcome to follow along like we do always. Ye me matamidam nityam anutishtanti manavaha shraddhavanto nasuyanto muchyante tepi karmibhihi. Okay.
Samji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe. Eme matamidam nityam anutishtanti manava shraddhavanto anasuyanto muchyante te api karmabhihi.
Very nice. Okay.
Ramji, Radhe Radhe. Please
Radhe Radhe.
go ahead.
Ye me matamidam nityam anutishtanti manavaha shraddhavanto anasuyanto muchyante te api karmabhi. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe, very nice.
Rahulji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Rahul.
Ye me matmidam nityam anutishtanti manava shraddhavanto nasuyanto muchyante tepi karmabhi. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe, thank you, Rahul.
Radhe Radhe, Sumeshji, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe Nitinji, Radhe Radhe Sandhyaji, and Radhe Radhe everyone. Ye me matamidam nityam anutishtanti manavaha shraddhavanto nasuyanto muchyante tepi karmabhihi. Radhe Radhe.
Very nice, Sumesh. Radhe Radhe. Okay.
Riyaji, Radhe
Radhe
Radhe.
Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.
Eme matam midam nityam अनुतिष्ठन्ति मानवाः श्रद्धावन्तो न सूयन्तो मुच्यन्ते तेऽपि कर्मभिः.
Very nice. Thank you.
Dinesh ji.
You can down to our last 4 hands.
Yes, Dinesh ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe Dinesh.
राधे राधे एमे मतमिदं नित्यम् अनुतिष्ठन्ति मानवाः श्रद्धावन्तो न सूयन्तो मुच्यन्ते तेऽपि कर्मभिः. राधे राधे.
Radhe Radhe. Very nice. Thank you, Dinesh.
One
Okay.
Sam. Yeah. Sam ji, Radhe Radhe, please go
Radhe
ahead.
राधे राधे ये मे मतमिदं नित्यम् अनुतिष्ठन्ति मानवा श्रद्धावन्तो नश्यन्तो मुच्यन्ते तेऽपि कर्मभिः. राधे
Very
राधे
nice, Sam ji. Radhe Radhe.
Aparna ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe Aparna ji.
राधे राधे ये मे मतम् इदं नित्यम् अनुतिष्ठन्ति मानवाः श्रद्धावन्तो न सूयन्तो मुच्यन्ते तेऽपि कर्मभिः.
Very nice.
Thank
Aparna
you.
ji. Radhe Radhe. Okay. Last but not the least, Sandhya. Go ahead.
Thank you, Radhe Radhe. Ye me matam itam nityam anutishtanti manavaha shraddhavanto na suyanto muchyante tepi karmabhihi.
Very nice. Thank you. All right. So let's get started on this shloka. So in this shloka, Lord Krishna is saying, those who abide by these teachings of mine, he's been talking about karma, right? Duty, karma, and all the concepts, including karma yoga that is spoken about. Now he's saying that those who abide by these teachings of mine with profound faith and free from kevil are released from the bondage of karma. So today we are going to talk about this shloka. We'll go in deeper detail. And this is what we're going to talk about, right? In this verse, Lord Krishna is actually expressing his opinion. So we will talk about how opinions are different from principles and which of the two is more credible. Okay. This is what we are going to talk about in today's shloka, because very deftly and very humbly, Lord Krishna is putting across his opinion regarding this topic. Okay. And tomorrow we will continue on this, where we talk about what happens if you don't put faith. So he's addressing both sides of it. If you do it with faith, like he's talking about in this shloka, what happens when you have profound faith, Shraddha? And then he's going to talk about if you don't have both. Okay, next one he's going to talk about that. So let's get started. Now here's VR again. You'll be very familiar with this our identity, right? Not the body that you're seeing, but that spark you're seeing on the left hand side. That is who we are. So, and what is Lord Krishna talking about is, so we are so, my soul is a tiny part of the Supreme Lord, Shri Krishna, right? We have spoken about this concept, multiple times by now. You'll be saying, okay, tell me something new. Okay, so yes, again, we are a tiny part of Lord Krishna. He's the enjoyer and master of all, okay, because he's at that constitutional position of being the whole and the supreme. Ultimately, he's the master and the enjoyer of everything. Now, all my works are meant for his pleasure, and thus I should perform my duties in the spirit of yagna or sacrifice to him. These are the concepts we've been talking about. And he's the one who provides the energy through which we are able to accomplish our tasks. And so we should not take credit for anything. It's just like we are tapping into the powerhouse, and only because of that energy it is happening. So we need to give the credit back there. Having said that, the right attitude on the path of devotion is when something wrong happens, we take accountability for that, and when something good happens, we give credit back to God because it's His energy that enabled it. Okay, that is the way forward on the path of spirituality, on the path of devotion. Okay, so moving on, let's talk about principle and opinion here. Okay, what is the difference between the two, and what is Lord Krishna talking about here? So there are two aspects to it. You have an opinion, and then you have a principle. Now, with majority of the world, typically the opinions, when somebody has an opinion about something, it is passed on as a principle, or even in their own mindset, is it accepted as a principle? Okay, that is typically how it goes. Especially everybody has an opinion about everything, right? This is good, this is bad, it is subjective, and everybody is justified in what they are doing. Now the real question is it driven by a bigger, broader, is it rooted in some principle, scriptural principle, or is it just a mere opinion? Okay, and what is the difference between the two? So we'll talk about that a little more in detail today. Okay, so with people, it happens typically the opinions are passed on as a principle, and that becomes the sacrosanct truth of our life, whatever we believe in. Okay, it may or may not be correct. That is the key thing here. Now, in this particular shloka, Lord Krishna, the reason I picked this part is because he's very nicely, now he's stating both a principle, which in Hindi it is called Siddhant, as well as an opinion. Okay, we'll see what are that. He's stating both. So very beautifully in this particular verse, he's terms the Siddhant principle by him as his mata, opinion. Okay, he's basically what you call a role model with regards to what humility means. He's giving you a very clear-cut principle, and yet he's coming across as it is in my opinion. This is how humbly he's stating in this particular shloka. Okay, and opinion is a personal view, while principle is a universal fact. Okay, this is how it happens in the world. And when God is giving opinion, of course, it has to be valued. He's giving an opinion, but he's not saying it's a principle. And I'll tell you the difference towards the end. He's giving a Siddhant principle, and yet he's giving an opinion as well. However, his opinion carries a lot of weight because of the reasons. I think by now we don't need reasons for that, right? He's God. That's why he's giving that. But the interesting thing here is talking as if it's his opinion. And what is, so opinions, they can differ. Mater bhinne, right? They say that munder bhinne, the however many people you have, that many opinions you'll have, right? Which is how it's meant to be. But principle is usually the same. Philosophers and teachers, they name their opinion as principle, but in Gita, the Lord has named the principle explained by him as an opinion. Okay. And what is he saying? Let's get into that. Now let's, what is the topmost prerogative that we have as humans in our life? Anybody wants to say that? What is the agenda of human life, to be honest? Anybody wants to say that? When we are born as a human. Radha Radhe Preeti ji, good to see you on camera today. Yes, please. Are you? Okay. Muted you.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yeah, I said to follow the path of God as the prerogative, the topmost prerogative.
Mhm.
Realize God later, but that looks very difficult, but at least follow the path.
At least get a step closer, right?
Yes.
So, very true. Yeah, Sandhya, you want to add something?
Yeah, I mean, based upon our learning in the classes, engage in the loving service of God, and of course, I think at a surface level, even out of ignorance, everybody's running after happiness. So, and that's God. So,
Yeah, actually, topmost prerogative, if you look at it as a human. So let's hear from Tanmay as well, and I'll continue on this discussion.
yes, Tanmay Radhe Radhe. Please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe. Yeah, so yes, yesterday I saw one quote of Guruji. He was saying it is the natural that the soul, that because we are a part of the supreme consciousness, we are always looking for Satchitanand, so we cannot be ignorant of it. So in human life, as he said, that the humans are blessed with a strong intellect. So rather than living a mundane life and being driven away by the three gunas, we are blessed with the human life where the intellect is such a strong that we can, I would say, we can illumine by true knowledge our intellect, such that our intellect can become such strong that it can overcome the Maya, and we direct all our senses towards the God, as the soul finds the eternal bliss always in the soul, not in Maya. This is
True.
my understanding till
Very
now.
true. Yeah, very true. So the purpose of human birth is to utilize it and get a step closer to the ultimate goal of life, which is God realization. It may not happen in this life, but the whole idea is to get at least a step closer to that. And because human birth is very precious, it doesn't come just like that. Like with our muscles or our body joints, it is said that use it or lose it. That is why we have to do yogic postures, and with old age they start becoming rigid, inflexible, and we have those kind of problems unless we use it. Same thing happens with human life, is that you use it or lose it. Because if we don't utilize human life, we lose it. Okay, you will get it, we will get it basically. We don't know how many, after how many kalpas, how many billions of years, and after how many species. So the topmost prerogative as humans is, okay, to progress spiritually. Rest all is self-created agendas, because we like to play ghar ghar in our own ways, lifetime after lifetime. So the fever, we are suffering from a fever, okay, and this is a jwar or a mental fever that is there. Okay, what is this fever? This fever is mental fever, which is basically driven by illusion, lust, anger, greed, and envy. These five kleshas that we have to deal with, and this fever requires a paracetamol of its own. Okay? If you have malaria, you give, what do you give? Some quinine, right? It ends with quinine. Similarly, when you have fever, you give paracetamol or crocin, antipyretic, they say it, right? And in this case, that fever basically needs to be pacified, right? Like a kid needs to be pacified. And what the exercise that we are doing is the same exercise. We're trying to pacify this fever that we are all suffering with. Everybody is under illusion, because Mayadheen, for as long as we are not God realized, we will continue to be Mayadheen. And now illusion causes the other problems. Because of the illusion, then the lust, going after the sense objects, the anger, because forming desires related to material objects, greed, needing more of it, envy and all that stuff, thinking that we have a limited pie available in this world. If somebody else has gotten it, then I'm losing out. All these are basically manifestations of our illusion only. And this is actually equated to having a fever, right? When somebody is in a fever, then it needs to be pacified. And after having given a call for action in the previous shlokas that we were doing, now Lord Krishna is pointing out the virtues of accepting these teachings with faith and following them in one's life. And it's just like, don't just go on accumulating the knowledge about the recipe alone. Go ahead and taste it as well. So first have faith in the teachings. That is what Lord Krishna is talking about. In his opinion, he's saying, if you approach it with faith, it can release you from karmic bondage and you can get closer to the goal of life. If you don't approach it with faith, is the next shloka what he's going to explain now. But in this one, he's saying, when you accept these teachings with faith and you follow them in one's life, you are doing the pacifying act. So your fever of lust, anger, greed, envy, illusion, it starts getting pacified. Okay, that is, if you need any other business case for Bhagavad Gita, I mean, it's a pretty clear-cut one, right? We all need our mind to rid itself of all these things, because they trouble us. They are not good, right? I mean, it's not good to be, who gets angry, I mean, feels happy if they get angry. Or for that matter, greed is also a kind of a misery that we create in our head. Envy, of course, we know, illusion nobody likes, and then going after sensory objects, it's never enough. So our prerogative as humans is to know the truth and then modify our lives accordingly. Okay, basically, in other words, it means taking a step closer towards the ultimate goal of life. That is the only agenda of life. So whatever we are doing in our life, having relations around, having a particular kind of a life template in our mind. This is how it needs to be, this is how it needs to be. At this age this should happen, this age this should happen, then this should happen, with kids this should happen. All that is fine as long as it's taking us a step closer to God. If not, then we are in our own world. Okay, we have created a bubble for ourselves, which is not really going to give us anything unless we are dovetailing it some spiritual lesson we are learning out of it. And then we end up creating a lot of lessons for ourselves in this journey because of our desires and misplaced understanding, driven by the illusion itself. So the only agenda, the topmost agenda for human life, is to get a step closer to God. If you complete God realization, best case scenario. If not, at least we should not have created more work for ourselves and taken giant steps or small steps towards realization and building those spiritual assets that we carry from lifetime to lifetime. Okay, that is the only prerogative of human life. And the beauty of this is that Lord Krishna says, I'm going to preserve these for you. So let's say in this life we have cracked a part of letting go, or we have cracked anger or envy or forgiving somebody or overcoming bitterness. All these good things, Lord Krishna says, I'm going to preserve it for you. So next time you are born with the same mind and you start from that point onwards. Such a big relief, right? So that is how it works. Now let's move on. Principal opinion is what we are going to talk about. So the previous verse, Lord Krishna had explained to Arjun to offer all the works for him. Now, with this, what happens is when he says, people can ridicule that. I mean, what kind of a God he's saying, give all the works, what kind of greedy person he is, who's asking, give all the works to me, right? What kind of a desire or a ask it is. Nobody has asked us in our lifetimes to say, give all your works to me. And when somebody comes without faith, reading this statement, and there's an entire chapter on God has tried to, when Arjun inquires him, how do I get to know you? Or then God goes on to explain, how you can identify all the magnificent things in this world but as a spark of his splendors. And people think what kind of an egoistic person he is, right? So people without faith can actually fall into two traps: either ridicule, those have no belief in God, what kind of a statement it is, okay? Or even rebuke, it can happen to me. Okay? Those who are envious of him. I mean, I couldn't understand how could somebody be envious, but maybe there's a place for that as well. That is why Lord Krishna is called out, right? Shishupal, right? He was very envious of Krishna and kept on. So maybe that there's a category for that as well, and it happens where it's very difficult for our pride to swallow that there is a bigger entity who's controlling all these things, right? And you're not in control of that. So he's saying these two emotions can be invoked by people who have lack of faith. And then he emphasizes the need for accepting the teachings with conviction. He's saying that you are going to get benefit from Bhagavad Gita if you accept these teachings with conviction. And if you faithfully follow these teachings, you will become free from the bondage of karma, because now you have started offering your results to God, right? And that eliminates the root cause of binding karma itself, right? We've spoken about this concept multiple times, the Karma Yoga concept. It's only when we do any act for our own sake, for our own happiness, for our own sensory satisfaction, that it leads to bhog. So basically, the journey is what we have been doing lifetime after lifetime is karam bhog. And now we have to gravitate towards karam yoga, start increasing that proportion. That is essentially the message of Bhagavad Gita. So from karam bhog to karam yoga, and it releases us from the bondage. Okay? And nobody likes to be, have these kind of chains and shackles anyways, right? And these shackles and chains, they are a cause of trouble in our head. All these anxieties and insecurities that we feel in life because of different things are happening because of that only. But the key condition that Lord Krishna has put here is that you need to accept these teachings with faith and conviction, and then faithfully practice it. Okay, all three have to happen. Okay, let's move on. Now let's have a quick discussion between the difference between the following: ethics, ethos, principal opinion, gravity, gravitational force. I'll not have a long discussion on that. I will just give you a sense of it just to move the discussion forward. See, there are few things which are a function of place, time, and other factors, right? For example, something which is ethical in one place may not be ethical at some other place, right? That's quite possible. It really depends on the tradition, place. It's a function of time, lot of factors. But ethos is something which is universal. Like, don't be honest, be good. These are called ethos, which are universally accepted. Ethics is something, it can be very contextual in a given situation. So there's a difference between ethics and ethos. Similarly, we have difference between gravity and gravitational force as well, right? Gravity, it varies. In moon, it is 1/6 of Earth. And similarly, based on the mass of a particular planet, the gravity could be less or more velocity, and the weight, the gravity would be less or more on that particular planet. However, gravitational forces is basically more like something which exists. It's not a function of what do you call that, mass or any other factors. It exists between two bodies. It just exists. So there is one is a function, one is contextual, function of a lot of other variables or factors. Other one is constant or fixed. Same thing is the difference between opinion and principle as well. Principle is something which is rooted. It is like set deal, done deal. This is a principle. Okay. Opinion is something which is on a shaky foundation. If your opinion is aligning with the deeper principle, then sure, then it becomes a principle, right? But other than that, it will have shaky foundation because everybody has an opinion, right? This new year, I was reading that, okay, this year I've taken a resolution that I will just give my opinions for free, right? And that there's no accountability for an opinion, and you just develop your opinion and live within that bubble in your comfort zone, justifying your thought process, and that's the end of it. So opinions could be many, as long as the opinion is stemming from a deeper principle with a bona fide knowledge, it is good, it is beneficial. But other than that, forming an opinion usually doesn't take much, right? It doesn't take a lot of effort. And that has happened because of the knowledge that has happened to us as part of our growing up, or something passed through our tradition from our elders, Google, friends, our own experiences, right? So opinions can be a little shaky. So that's why it's very important for us to be able to differentiate between the two and take a stance on the side of caution, where say it's opinion, not necessarily may or may not be the truth. But when we become rooted in our opinion and thinking it to be all and end all of everything, that's where the problem happens, right? So when the scientist or an agnostic or an atheist says there is no God, that is an opinion, that is not a principle. It's a viewpoint based on whatever little understanding that person may be having. So let's move on. Now, if you want to do practical, theory must be clear. Let's understand this principle. 50% of the battle in any field, whether it's a material field or more so in spiritual field, is the theory. The theory has to be rock solid. If your foundation is weak, then even if you build a big castle on top of it, doesn't matter. So theory must precede the practical part of it, right? In regard to the theory, if there are cobwebs in the mind, then we cannot do practical properly. And that happens a lot of time with people where, there are so many confusions about spirituality. Is not a, what do you call that, straightforward, so many theories are there, so much of literature is there, so many things are there, and then there are so many cobwebs in our mind that we are not able to proceed with certainty, assurance. So somebody says this, somebody says that, it's all over the place. It's a wild goose chase. So it's important to get those cobwebs removed, at least to an extent where we can take the next step. Very important to do that, and that can happen only when you come in contact with the guru, right? So theory is very important, and if you look at it, one part of it is understanding the theory, and of course it precedes the other part, which is the practical implementation of it. The step one is, first of all, we need to have theory, at least the basic foundational questions in life, right? What is Atma? What is God? What is Maya? What is Karma? What is Gyan? What is Bhakti? All these terminologies that we come across, we need to have sense around, what do these mean actually? Because if these are driven by our opinions, then it'll be all over the place, right? It's like I said, it's a wild goose chase. But that theory, that tattva gyan, if that is solid, Then you know what you're doing and how it is it truly going to help or could be counterproductive for our journey or not. Now, Lord Krishna, he in great detail in this chapter, he's been explaining the work and the science of work, Karam and Karam Yoga. And he himself recommended the path of sannyas. If you look at it, Karam sannyas, to Uddhav in Kali Yuga. He said, renounce everything and perform your sadhana. That was the message for Uddhav. That was for a certain purpose. I'll get into that. Okay. Now in Bhagavad Gita, he's recommending Karam Yoga is for a different purpose. And the teachers preach according to time, place, and circumstances. So Uddhav, he said Karam Sannyas. Arjun is saying Karam Yoga. Okay. And I'll touch upon this topic. It's pretty interesting. But see, if you say, no, I'm comfortable in my current life, I mean, why to even take the hassle of getting through all these concepts? It's just too complicated and a lot of weight on my head. It's of course not obligatory, right? De facto world is always there, and that's what we're doing. It's not an obligatory step, because it really depends on whether we are seeking. If you're comfortable repeating in this world, then we don't need to do anything, right? That de facto law of karma is anyway taking care of it. Doesn't take any effort at all, right? Whenever we get human birth, again this whole drama will start. But if you think it is an important thing, then you take this first step, and then step by step you build on that journey. Now, talking about when Krishna says, let's look at it. By Karam Yoga, you will attain God. Okay, he says that. Then it means, what does it mean? That is the truth. He's saying, take it, what I'm telling you, as a principle. Then when he says Karam, by Karam Sannyas, you will attain God. That is also truth. And then he says, by surrendering your mind completely to him, you will receive his grace. That is also an eternal truth. Okay. All these are siddhants, principles. Okay, that's not an opinion. However, when he says between the two paths, Karam Sannyas and Karam Yoga, I recommend this path of Karam Yoga. That is his opinion. Okay, so there's a difference. He's stating it as an opinion. However, it is still a siddhant, because for 99.9% of the people, Karam Yoga is the way to go. And through that, you can perfect your devotion and achieve God realization. And in this also is very gently, humbly telling Arjun that, you approach this with faith and conviction. And when you start implementing it, it will start releasing you from the bondage of karma. In my humble opinion, he's not saying humble, but he's saying this is my opinion. Matam idam, my opinion. And when God gives an opinion, I think it better has to be valued and respected. Our opinion, we have to take it with a pinch of salt. People of opinion around, of course, we have to take it with a pinch of salt. It may or may not align with the broader principle, but with God's opinion and principle, actually both are same, I would say. Okay, there's no difference between these two. But he, from time to time in Bhagavad Gita, is going to talk about that. In my opinion. Okay. Any questions so far?
Samji, Radhe, please go ahead.
So Nitinji, this one I always don't understand this verse when Krishna says it is his opinion, but many times throughout the Gita he established himself as God. Mata paradam dharmana kinchidasti. All those sarva dharma pratyaja, you should meditate upon me, surrender to me. All those he said, but here in this particular verse, why would he say opinion? That is causing confusion.
It's causing confusion.
I mean, yeah. Why would he say opinion? It is principle, right?
See, in between Bhagavad Gita, he tells Arjun to declare boldly. Now you will say, why is he asking Arjun? Why is he not declaring himself? I mean, if he's saying it as an opinion, we have to look at it. He's humbly putting it. Okay, so he's not saying it's his way of basically articulating and communicating something. So he's actually telling us basically, we as humans, we pass on our opinion as an absolute truth. Right? When we talk to somebody, when we have certain opinion, we say this is the truth. So maybe that's a way for us to learn from him that, on certain things, he's also saying it's my opinion. And when God says opinion, of course, that is Siddhant only. And he's not just saying, I think so, or it may or may not be right. Of course, he's right. But it should not be confusing. It's simply saying it. I would take it as, something, a lesson in humility when he states certain things. Nowhere in the Bhagavad Gita he's told Krishna, Arjun that I am telling you, so just believe it, okay? Don't you know who I am? Of course not. Even towards the end of Bhagavad Gita, he tells Arjun, now that I have armed you with the right knowledge, now using your own vivek, you decide what is good. Now you will say, why is he saying that when he's God? I mean, if you have to put a question mark, you can put a question mark anywhere, right?
No, that one there is free will for that. Every soul is endowed with free will. There is a reason, but here,
So let me
until
switch
Guru says,
opinion. Let me switch opinion with the Siddhant. How would it help you? Now, because of this doubt, I think you will probably do something different.
Correct. Because people might think that maybe he's not God, he is also just like us. They may think, right? If opinion comes, if the word opinion comes.
Okay. I mean, we are free to believe whatever you want to believe, right? So when we start Bhagavad Gita, we first understand who's Krishna, right? So now just because he's saying my opinion, if that question mark will come, then you need to finding answer to that question mark would be part of our spiritual journey. Yeah. But to satisfy Samji, Krishna is not going to refrain from expressing his opinion, okay? I'll still say it as my opinion only. Okay, yeah, any other questions?
I also have a question.
Yeah.
So, first of all, is it important or necessary for us to understand why Krishna suggested different paths to Arjuna versus Uddhava? And secondly, is it a context, I mean, time dependent thing? Because at this point of time, Arjun was fighting a war, and hence this was his suggestion. And maybe later on, Krishna's suggestion would have been different. And in that context, he's saying it's an opinion because it's, as you said, contextual things can be referred to as opinion
True.
versus.
See, it was not a coincidence that Lord Krishna picked the battlefield to impart this beautiful message. Okay. Because he knew that this message is going to serve the generations to come and is going to form the backbone of spirituality, of Sanatan Dharam in Kali Yuga. So he picked up a battlefield. So basically, the situation that he picked Arjun in is representative of or illustrative of the situations that we feel in our day-to-day life. When I say illustrative of it, of course, not 1:1. That was probably 1,000 times more than what we feel every day. So basically, what he tried to say that is if somebody in that kind of a precarious, tricky, extremely stressful situation can implement this message, can understand, grasp this message and understand and then implement it, then you all cannot give an excuse. You all need to be fighting that war with the same mindset even in your day-to-day life. And that is why he picked up. So Karma Yoga in that sense is the Yuga Dharma, you can call it, right? Like Kirtan is the Yuga Dharma in Kali Yuga, right? So you can consider it as, very few people would be eligible for Karam Sannyas. How do they get picked up for Karam Sannyas? Only God knows. Guru would know that. Maybe they have developed enough detachment, dispassion by perfecting their Karam Yoga in one of their previous lives. Without, now I'm saying that at the peril of somebody interpreting it as, do we have to go through Karam Yoga first before we get into Karam Sannyas? No. They're all parallel tracks. But quite possible somebody has developed the required detachment in their previous lives and they are on the cusp of perfection. Maybe God says, okay, few more buts, but probably Karam Yoga is not needed for you. You do Karam Sannyas now. We don't know what is the algorithm in which is picked up. Having said that, if you had perfected in Karam Yoga, then also you realize God. In both cases, it's the same. Janak, Prahlad, Ambarish, Prithu, all they were Karam Yogis. Even in our time, a lot of people, they may not be perfect Karam Yogis, but closely, right? They say Madan Mohan Malviya and even some people say Narendra Modi is a Karam Yogi. We don't know to what extent they are, but there's a possibility for all of us actually to uplift ourselves to those ideals. So yes, God gives it, he's given that message of Bhagavad Gita to Arjun because he wanted that message to be the core philosophy for our life's reference. Okay, so Karam Yoga is what is the recommended path for it. Unless we are like Swamiji, okay, who can actually fits the bill for a Karam Sannyas. And that can happen only under the expert guidance of a guru. You cannot take a call on your own for that.
Yeah,
The coding is
thank
the way
you.
to go for us. Yeah, 99.9%. Yes,
So,
Preeti.
and also, like for Uddhav, it was only Krishna who could have like suggested that he should take up karma sannyas. He himself
Uddhav was a
couldn't.
jnani basically, right? He said, okay, now you actually, if for you to, jnani has already developed that dispassion and detachment, right? Understanding, but he wanted to give him bhakti sanskars. That's why you do sadhana now in Vrindavan and understand the personal form of God, because without that, you cannot get that divine bliss. Right? You are still capped at Brahmaleen and a Brahmagyani stage only. So maybe that was a message for Uddhav, not for ordinary people like us. We are not at the stage of Uddhav, right? But we don't need to get to the stage of Uddhav and then get love of God. We can directly build those sanskars and get there, like gopis did.
Yeah, yeah,
Uddhav was
Preeti.
his best friend, right, in Mathura. So he said, okay, now maybe I should give him some extra gyan, right, where he can go beyond Brahmaleen state. So it was a huge mercy of Krishna that he gave him that option, not option, but guided him to take his journey further.
Mm.
Yes, Preeti ji.
Yeah,
Radhe Radhe.
go ahead, Sandeshi. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, please go ahead. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can. I thought you were going ahead with something, so I stopped. Yeah, Radhe Radhe everyone, once again. Nitinji, contrary to the previous devotee, this word matamidam, this always enthralls me. I mean, I would use some of the vocabulary from this session itself. No cobwebs whatsoever. When he says this is my principle and this is my opinion, I am hands down going to follow that one. So just again, using the vocabulary from this session, my opinion on this.
That's very true. Yeah, I was very fascinated when I came across this verse. But see, it's like God's they and they, he both are same. His soul and body are same. Ours are different, right? But yeah, I was like, how beautifully he's saying my opinion, how humble he is. Now, her opinion for us, it's a done deal at that point, right? It's his opinion. Like, who else can think better than him about giving you an opinion? Who's the most intelligent person on this earth? Brahma, who creates everything, right? And where does Brahma gets gyan from? God himself. And now he's giving his opinion about his own creation, what should people do? Of course, it has to be valued. He's the rule maker and he's he's the supreme intellect. So yeah, but yeah, it's pretty fascinating the way he does that. In fact, in one of the shlokas, he tells Arjun to declare something. He's actually used a lot of different things during that, right? He's asking Arjun that declare boldly to the world that none of my devotee will ever be lost. Okay, that means he could have said it himself. But then, under special conditions and circumstances, God also breaks his vows, like he did in the case of Bhishma Pitama. But when his devotee is going to say that, he will make sure his word is protected. So then, for bhakti, Lord Krishna is telling Arjun, you declare it to the world, so that you are my devotee and I will not let your word down, no matter what. Because when he gives a word, he can break it occasionally to basically uphold his devotee sentiment, like he did for Bhishma Pitama. But when he'll make his devotee commit to it, he'll never break it. That's how his love goes. And now, other thing is, uh, yeah. So Krishna, I think, like Samji, coming back to your question, if this whole thing puts a question mark of Krishna, then let's revisit who Krishna is. Okay, who's Krishna when we're talking about here, and take some scriptural understanding from Bhagavatam and other places. Just because of one statement that he's making out of humility, we put a question mark. Okay, is he a person? Why he's saying that? I think that will be too naive. So, yeah. Okay. Yes, any more questions on this? So the important point here is, of course, I picked up this part where Lord Krishna is talking about that you have to take it with faith and conviction, as the shloka is saying, and next shloka is going to talk about what if you don't have it. So he's going to address both aspects of it. So the key here is the Bhagavad Gita is a manual that we are reading. It's like a product manual we've spoken about, right? Every product, the proper usage is basically determined by what is written in the manual. And this is a manual for human life. If we understand this, read it, understand it with faith and conviction, then we can make our life auspicious and success. Otherwise, we're just moving around based on our understanding, our opinions and stuff like that. Another key thing from this particular shloka is that we should take inspiration from God when He's humbly stating, and we talk of our opinions as an absolute truth in this world. And that is where we got to be really careful. Is it a principle or is it my opinion? If it's my opinion, I'll put that disclaimer along with it. Okay, I may be wrong, but we don't have that habit of doing it, right? But God is basically telling it as an opinion, but I would take it as a principle, like PTG said, right? There's no reason for us to take it anything other than a principle. So when he says Karma Yoga is the way to go, that's what we need to believe. Any other questions on this topic? So by the way, tomorrow we had enthusiastic team presentation, but because we have a hard stop and it's going to set the whole session on fire, so we are going to delay it to Wednesday. But tomorrow we will continue on this discussion. I will talk about what is the fuel that we need on this path, maybe, and we'll see a lecture around it. We all need some kind of a fuel, right, in our journey, like a car needs some fuel to go from point A to point B, and talk about that because it is actually driven by that, how quickly we proceed, right? There were two guys walking to Badrikashram. So, this guy sage was walking and there's another guy who started walking with him. And this guy asked the sage, how far is that ashram? Or no, he says, how much time will it take to reach the ashram? Sage did not reply. They kept on walking. And after an hour, the sage said, it will take 8 hours. So this guy said, I asked this question 1 hour back and now you're replying. He said, I was checking your speed. Okay, you covered 2 kilometers in 1 hour, 16 kilometers. So now it's going to take you 8 hours. So we'll talk about that fuel that is needed that will dictate the pace in which we choose to walk. That is something we are going to talk about tomorrow. Any other questions on this topic, principle and opinion that we've been talking about? Or for that matter, yeah.
Can I make announcements in the meanwhile?
Yes, please, sure.
Okay, so I have posted the links. First of all, the JKO Prem Yoga Teacher Training is going to start. This is a 200-hour course. And actually now everybody can take advantage of this from the comfort of their home as well. It's a virtual training. So I've shared the link. It starts on March. It has started on March 17th. But I guess still it might be possible to join. It goes on till April 25th. Then there's family camp with Swamiji. So there'll be a 7-day kind of retreat with Swamiji at the Radhakrishna temple, and it is from in July, and this can also be attended virtually. Some of the sessions will be available, Swamiji's lecture and other events. So link for that.
Get a visa and can make it here, please do. Shyamji, you may get lucky. I'm hearing that. So please try. Come over. It's a very immersive experience for a week. And we have JKO Idol in that as well. Okay. It's like Indian Idol and stuff like that. And it gets very competitive. That's towards the end of it. But the most beautiful aspect of these is that you get to have a very good immersive experience with Swamiji, lectures, kirtans throughout the day, and other activities that are planned. Basically, you don't want to come back to work and home, at the end of it. So that's how it happens every year. And we are very fortunate to have these kind of sessions, every year. Plus we have a retreat coming up as well. So it's like you pop in a pill, which is fine. But these kind of retreats and family camps are like an injection. Okay, when you take an injection, immediately it goes to the bloodstream, right? So that is how these sessions are. So Shyamji, please do try. You never know, you may get lucky with Delhi Embassy.
Yeah, and last one, Chaitra Navratri and Ram Navami celebrations. So from March 22nd, which is I guess tomorrow, or the Chaitra Navratri is starting. So there'll be 9-day celebrations going on in the temple. And then on Sunday, April 2nd, it's Ram Navami. So there'll be grand celebrations for the same. So which can also be attended virtually as well as in person. That is it. And most importantly, please consider filling the feedback tracker And in case any of you are interested in joining any of the Seva teams, you can also put in your names in the feedback tracker.
Right. We have 3 teams who have done a pretty amazing presentations, and the 4th one, we can't wait to see their presentation as well. No pressure, Monica ji, whatsoever. So yeah, please do consider if you want to, there's so many opportunities available within the Seva teams, and do fill out the feedback tracker. We always have a couple of new participants who come in and say, we want to do Seva as well. So that's wonderful. Okay, any more questions? Yes, Anita ji, you wanted to say something?
Yes, Anita ji. Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe. Like God is suggesting like this karma yoga and karma sannyas and surrendering our mind completely. So here the common denominator is surrendering our mind. Whatsoever we have to surrender, whichever the path, we have to surrender our mind. So that is the common factor, and we have to surrender only our mind. Even though you don't surrender any other things, if surrender your mind, that is the crucial and foremost thing here we have to do here. So if you can come up with any other principle apart from these 3, you are welcome. If you can think and contemplate over this, you cannot come up with any other best choices apart from these 3.
True.
So it's best to go with the choices what God is suggesting here, because our intellect is not so well developed, or we cannot develop, like we cannot come up with any other answer. Thank you, Radhe Radhe.
Very true. Very nicely articulated, Anita ji. In fact, 9.34, it talks about this concept as well, right? Where he says, God is saying, man is the only thing, right? He says, man mana bhav mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. Mind is what you need to offer me. That's all. Otherwise, we have nothing else to offer to him. Everything is, we looked at all the 24 elements, our gross body, everything is his energy only, prakriti only. We have absolutely nothing that we can offer to God other than our man. That is the only thing he doesn't have. And he's purposely created it that way, right? Giving us the free will, because only when you have a choice, you can love. Without choice, it is a machine. It's a robot. And then the purpose of creation is defeated if it had to be a robot. Very nice. And yes, Karam Yoga and Karam Sannyas, the software is same in both. Hardware is different. That's the only difference. Internally, both are same. But Karam Yoga is suggested for 2 reasons. One is fallback is there. If you're not there yet, at least you are not falling down to, degrading yourself, because you have a duties aspect, worldly duties that will keep your progression, if not nirgun progression, but at least sattva progression on. Because for the sake of duties, you will continue to work and perform, and not fall further into tamas and hadisha boards. So duties will keep you going. So that is one reason Karam Yoga is produced. And the second reason is that people look at only your external acts, not inside what's happening. So if people simply start doing sadhana and they take a retirement from their worldly duties, then it will set a bad example for others. And that is why Karam Yoga is a recommended path for most. Although from inside, Karam Sannyasi and Karam Yoga both are same, both are attached to God only. Janak was a Karam Yogi. When his whole palace was on fire, his queens were and his kids were burning, he was completely detached. He was talking to his sage and asking him about Brahma Gyan. That much detachment he had. So Karam Yogis, they are at a very different level. Prahlad, we have heard that story when his son and his guru's son, they had a bet who's superior. And so then whoever is going to lose will be sent to gallows. And then Prahlad said, it's my guru's son is superior. And then he said, based on that condition, your son has to be sent to gallows. He said, okay, send him to gallows. He did not even blink an eyelid, completely detached. Okay, send my son. I'm fine to lose him. And then his guru's son said, because my position is superior, now I tell you, I instruct you to release him. He said, okay, release him. It's like both cases, he was okay. That was the level of a Karam Yogi. So even though he was a king, but from inside he was completely detached and his mind was absorbed in God. So internally both are same, externally there is a difference, right? One might be doing all the work for God or related seva, and other might be occupied in worldly duties but internally still absorbed in God and doing it for the pleasure of God only. That is the only difference. So Karam Yogi is the way for 99.9% of the people. For some reason, if you think you are ready for Karam Sannyas, please speak to Swamiji, okay? Dial him. Don't take that decision on your own, okay? It's very, very risky. Yes, Shyamji. See, a lot of Karam yogis, Karam sannyasis, if you take premature sannyas, we have seen those, right? That Dam Maro Dam movie, that song you have heard, that's what happens, okay? That's the future if you do that. Mit jai gum, because you don't have plan B in life. And that is why Krishna said, don't get into that. Okay, very, very risky. Yes, Shyamji.
Radhe, Radhe. One thing, why do we use the intellect when God says, when we know what God's principles or opinions, it's okay. Why can't I take both?
We can take
Why
both.
do
I
we
don't
use the
know.
intellect?
Samji had an objection to that. I don't see a reason for objecting to that. No, none of us have an objection.
So when he says do it, do it. As simple as that.
Very
Isn't
simple.
it?
Very true. I am totally with you. +1.
Thank you so much. And second thing, we have been inviting people from our session to join seva groups, but nobody is coming forward. तो इसके लिए हम लोग क्या करें कि सब लोग आ जाए सेवा में? I do not know.
Wait for Wednesday's presentation and we will have a flood of people coming in. I'm telling you.
तो मोनिका ही कुछ
We have to be patient. It will happen at its own pace. So we'll have to.
My point is what stops us from being from doing seva? It's not what this, but in general, what hitch or glitch we have.
What we will do is we will have a section for you on the same day where you can make a spiel for seva and motivate people. Okay, we'll see what happens after that. See, Krishna has told in Bhagavad Gita, he gives a message and let everybody decide. So we have to follow the same principle, but you can give it another try. Okay, we will keep giving it a try and we'll carve out a 5-minute Shyamji speak on that on Wednesday.
In my case, I did not take seva, as you know. It was forced on me, given to me. If you know, I'm sure you know my history. Wherever I have been, it's all by Krishna's guidance and your input and your help that I'm there, and I know that. अपने आप मैं कुछ नहीं करता, you know. So I do not know people like me. I'm saying about myself. What stops me from doing all these things?
We take liberty from you. We will start doing it with others as well, but we'll go slow. Let me put it that way. You are our favorite, so we can take any liberty from you, Shyambhai. That much I can tell you. So we all love you.
Thank you so much. Radhe Radhe.
Thank you so much. Radhe Radhe.
And Monica ji just wants to add to what Shyamji said that in order to do seva, we need grace. So when grace will be there, people will automatically get drawn towards seva.
Yes, it requires grace for sure. True. Yes, I see Himani, Prakash ji, and Monica ji. So let's start with Himani.
Yeah. Radhe Radhe Himani.
Radhe Radhe everyone. I was curious, like, what is the eligibility criteria for Karm Sannyas? I know Karm Yoga is for everyone, but Karm Sannyas, like, what are the curious?
Karm Sannyas is call of God. It comes to some people where God dials you, and that's it. And that's the only thing. Fish out of water. You won't care then. Family, life, job, career, anything and everything. But that call doesn't come to everyone. So, and if you're feeling strongly about it, it is basically very clearly written, in our scriptures as well. It has to be done in consultation and under the expert guidance of a guru, because they know your spiritual trajectory, where you are, and if they think you are ready for it, they would do that. Technically, if you ask me, I think they are in the advanced stage of renunciation and they have developed the required dispassion or detachment from the world that is needed. Okay, and then maybe that's probably one of the criteria that is employed, but could be more than that. But you can ask Swamiji as well. But yeah, those people are like, they are done deal with the worldly things and all the lessons that they had to learn dealing with people, objects, the secret stash that we have around people, relationship, object, maybe they are done deal from that or at the advanced stage of it. And that is why they have that eligibility.
But Karma Yoga and Karma Sannyas will lead to one goal, right?
True. Doesn't mean that you have to first become Karam Yogi, then Karam Sannyasi, then God. No. From Karam Yogi, directly God. Karam Sannyasi, God. Both can go. But for majority, Karam Yoga is preferred, basically recommended by Krishna.
Okay, so basically Karma Sannyas is like, God deliberately choosing some souls for this. Like it's not
God, yeah, God and Guru, they choose some souls, maybe because of their past sanskars or whatever lessons they were supposed to learn, they've already learned. So could be anything out of that.
Thank you, Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe. Right? Like some Swamiji, he's a Karam sannyasi. So he doesn't have worldly duties that bog him down, right? But he was probably at that level. I mean, at that stage when he used to meditate at the age of 7 and 8, you can imagine, how much thirst he had for the spiritual path. Yes, Prakashji.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe Prakashji, please go
Radhe
ahead.
Radhe everyone, Radhe Radhe Nitinji. Yeah, as you rightly said, Karma Sannyas is something that if you don't take it with in the presence of Guru, true Guru, it will actually lead to a lot of complications, and you'll accumulate a lot of sin, because if you are not ready to the real Karma Sannyas, then you can actually go to hellish abodes, right? So because you are doing it as something external, but not internal, right? Because at the end of the day, spiritual journey or the God relation is something to do with the mind, as you rightly said, right? So you don't know unless until really you are eligible or not, unless it is instructed by the Guru. You don't know whether you are ready for that state.
True.
And if you just take it Karma Sannyas, then you are becoming like a hypocrite, and you are like that is more dangerous than just being a karma yogi, or even with a normal human being. That is better off than becoming imperfect karma sannyas.
Perfect. Very true. And Karam sannyas, if we take when we are not ready for it, it is also, I think, technically, we would be thinking it's called Yukta Viragya and Falgu Viragya, right? So Falgu Viragya can happen. There is artificial renunciation. Yukta Viragya happens when you take this path knowing that there is neither happiness nor misery in this world. But Karam Sannyas people typically like to say, oh, enough of misery in this, dealing with the world and all that stuff. I'm going to take sannyas. No, that is not good. That is called Falgu Viragi. You'll go to hellish abodes. That is the. Yeah.
And also, I read somewhere in one of the books, Swamiji's books, that Karma Yoga is something like it's very practical way of attaining God in Kali Yuga. Because it's Kali Yuga we have a lot of distractions, and so I mean this is the only way to actually go into the go. Then everything else is like maybe it's a little later. Yeah.
Not later. I mean, it's not a requisite must-have step. That much I can tell. I mean, that's how we have to look at it. But yeah, Lord Krishna is saying that Karam Yoga, between the two, that means he knows the state of people in Kali Yuga. And that is why he's saying that is the way to go.
He coined it for this, customized it for us.
Customized it for us. Yeah. Very clearly saying that. Very true. Thank you so much. Very nice. Thank you.
There are some follow-up comments, if I can quickly read. And I also feel, I think this topic will require much more discussion as I'm reading the comment.
Into that.
Yeah, so Kumarji says, if someone needs to ask if they need to take Karma Sannyas, then they are not truly ready for it.
Yeah, at the same time, it's not a call that somebody can take on their own alone. That is another thing. That is an important thing to know, right? Sometimes our intellect may be playing mischief with us. We don't know that. And that is why it is said, when it is said in 4.34, that shloka about Guru that we spoke about, Tad Vidhi Pranipaten, you have to surrender even your intellect to a Guru and says, okay, this is what my buddhi is saying, but I offer it to you as well. You tell me if my buddhi is right or not, right? So if otherwise we have no means, we can only rely on our buddhi, and your buddhi might it's very good at justifying itself. I'm ready for Karam Sannyas. That call has come from me. God dialed me. But we still have to take a guidance of Guru on that, okay? He
And
will
this
tell
could,
you, are you truly ready or not? Yeah.
and that could also be an escapist mentality as well.
We don't know right now. We can't trust our buddhi. Bottom line is that. And
Yeah.
buddhi is the maximum we can go, right? And we can't even trust that. That is the whole thing.
And Sasmita ji says there is Varnashram, Grahast, Vanprasth, Sannyas to maintain the hierarchy.
Yeah, so this sannyas is more in the Varnashram order of life. This Karam sannyas that we are talking about, you start from the word go. You don't go through from Brahmacharya, basically you take Karam sannyas directly. No Grihast and other stages are skipped completely. Right? Swamiji did not get into any other stations, right? He was like, so those are very few. But other than that, that Vanaprasth that we are talking about, that is a different thing. That is more on the duty side of thing, that where everybody who are not ready for the spiritual message, they should also practice that, at least to get closer to the goal of life. Because if you are hung up in worldly life, even at the age of your, beyond your retirement, then there's no end to it, right? Like I see people who are crying. Why? What happened? Their great grandmother died. Okay, that's fine. You felt a loss. No, but only if she had seen her great grandson's wedding, it would have been so nice. So the aspirations, desires, they never end. Okay, so they just keep on inflaming. Nobody's satisfied. Only if that one thing they could have done or seen. What that only if, right? How many people get that opportunity? But are we satisfied? No. Yes, Monica ji.
Radhe
Yours now.
राधे 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 एवरीवन राधे राधे नितिन जी क्या बोला श्याम जी आपने अभी कुछ बोला ओके ओके सो नितिन जी सेवा सत्संग साधना एंड कर्म योग अगर ये करते चले जाएं let's say by the end of our life since we are in grihasthi we continue to
in 26 days and 16 minutes you will realize God. Okay. No, okay, go ahead.
Let's say to the best of your ability, let's say if आप कर्म योग कर रहे हैं and then by the end of your life you're still humanly you might still have affection towards your family. Do we still get to go to Godok?
Of course not. God is perfectionist. He said this chunnu munnu and everything. When everything is cleaned up, then I'm ready for you. And we always find 1-2 people in every life. And if you don't find people, we find pets. So he said, just clean it all completely. When me, exclusivity is the condition. Nirantarta and ananyata, these are both needed. Krishna is a perfectionist. He says, when you come to me, worldly people have a problem with it. Right? Worldly people say, okay, why are you getting in this path so much? Puja part we also do. Why don't you limit it to that alone? So he said, similarly, when you start attaching your mind to me, I'll give you 6 different things, varieties. Naam, Roop, Gun, Leela, Dham, and Parikar. No problem. You think about any of those, but don't win world at that point. Even if you're one person of worldly secret stash, which God will know anyway, he will say, I'm ready to wait. So he's a perfectionist. Not even 1%, 0.01% attachment for anything related to the world. Then Krishna will come. It's as simple as that.
So in some form, karma sannyas is important, right? Eventually.
No, it's not karam. See, karam yoga doesn't have karam yoga means you are doing your duties and doing it for the pleasure of God. It doesn't mean you are doing it for the world. Of course, you are operating in the world, but attachment has to be in God. Buddhi in the world, man in God. That is the key. Tan kar mein, man yar mein, they say, right? So man has to be in Krishna only, exclusively. Even if you have it for a worldly person for a little bit trace, then he said, okay, I'm in no hurry. Take your time, but it has to be exclusive and it has to be continuous. It's as simple as that.
A follow-up question, नितिन जी, किसी ने गृहस्थ में रह के ये कर पाया है? मतलब कोई कर पाया है ये?
No, nahi.
Eventually, मतलब
So many saints are there, and that is why so many saints in Grihast. Janak was a Grihast, Tukaram was a Grihast, right? A lot of people have done that. So Grihast is an excuse. Grihast has nothing to do with that. Okay. Grihast, it doesn't mean that you have to be a sannyasi in order to achieve God. You can do it in a grihastha ashram as well. Not at all. It's not a condition at all. That is why Krishna is talking about karma. He's not saying, you know what, dude, first you take sannyas, let go of your wife, kid, and all, and then I will meet you. No, he's saying you perfect it as a karma yoga, and then I'm ready for you. You can do that. There's so many examples in history for that. Narsi Mehta was there. You know what? Narsi Mehta, when his whole house was set ablaze, he lost, I think, his wife and kid as well. And he said, okay, Krishna, maybe that's what you wanted. The last set of attachment that I could have had, you have taken that away as well. So I can devote my whole time to you. That was his mindset. He was a grihast. Look at the level of detachment this person would have had, right? So saints have, you can go get into the life stories of grihast. And Mirabai was a grihast, but she never accepted anybody other than Krishna in her mind. She was also grihast. Right? Yeah.
Okay. Thank
And
you. Radhe Radhe.
yeah, and Shri Ramyaji also adds, Maharaji was also in Grihastha
He did
ashram.
that on purpose because all the saints came in as sannyasis. He said, no, let's challenge the stereotype, nothing to do with that. Maybe just for that purpose. So grihastha has nothing to do with it. It's an internal thing that Krishna is asking us to practice. We don't have to leave the world. But put your attachment in perspective. You are a trustee, not an owner. It's a privilege God has given you, not something that you think, okay, it's mine. So that mine has to be looked at it in perspective. And then that attachment has to be dovetailed towards God. That is the problem. See, why the attachment comes, we think we are going to derive bliss out of this relation. We forget that before they became our kids or our relation, they were kids of God. Right? We think we are the proprietor and owner of that. So that is where the problem is. God said, fix that understanding first. But yeah, your question, I get it, but Krishna is very perfectionist. He said, only me, ananyata. Tesham nitya bhyuktanam, and he's repeated that word multiple times in Bhagavad Gita, exclusivity and continuity. Both these conditions are needed. And Karma Yoga is a stepping stone for that.
Okay. Thank you. Radhe Radhe.
I know, a lot of food for thought today, right? See, God has given us one mind. If he had given us two minds, right, we'd have very smartly kept one mind for the world and one for God. So he said, no, I've given you two eyes, 2 ears, but I'll give you one mind. And that mind, you have to give it to me. And then I'm all yours. Game on. Okay, any more questions? Or anybody for the devotional segment? I know we are way over now. So we can continue on this fascinating discussion tomorrow. And anybody for the devotional segment today? Urvi, Monica ji, you wanted to sing today? Himani is there. She can sing today. We've not had it for a while. Sumesh ji, you want to sing today?
Radhe Radhe Sumesh ji.
Yes, Nitin.
Okay, go ahead. If there's
I
anybody
want
else,
to
you can
sing.
raise your hand. We can do that. Otherwise, we can wrap up the session after this. Go ahead, Sumesh ji.
Okay. तुम्हें ढूंढ लाने को जी करता है, तेरे पास आने को जी करता है, गुजरती है क्या हम पर हालत न पूछो, गुजरती है क्या हम पर हालत न पूछो, तुम्हें जान दे को जी करता है, तुम्हें जान दे को जी करता है, यदि बेवफा बेचैन डर अगर हम, यदि बेवफा बेहया बेचैन गर अगर हम वफा आजमाने को जी करता है। राह निहारूं क्यों प्रियतम की, क्या उसको पाना ही सुख है, जिसका है आभास प्रकृति में, क्यों उसको खोने का दुख है। राह निहारूं क्यों प्रियतम की, क्या उसको पाना ही सुख है, जिसका है आभास प्रकृति में, क्यों उसको खोने का दुख है। राह दिखा दो हे त्रिपुरारी, राह दिखा दो हे त्रिपुरारी, कही विधि विनती करूं, प्रकृति मनोहर मोहर विधि है, विनती सुनु मोरी, यही विधि विनती करूं। राधे राधे।
Thank you, Sumeshji. Very nice. I think you've been listening to this bhajan for a long time. Seems like. So very nicely sung. Thank you very much for contributing in our devotional segment today. Very nice. Do we have anybody else? Mahi, you wanted to sing as well?
Yes, wonderful, Sumeshji, beautiful lyrics. Mahi, Radhe Radhe.
Yes. Radhe Radhe everyone. Radhe Radhe. Acha.
Radhe Radhe,
Okay.
Mahi ji.
This bhajan is from O Kana Ab To Murli Ki. Okay. O Kana Ab To Murli Ki, O Kana Ab To Murli Ki, Madhur Suna Dona, O Kana Ab To Murli Ki, मधुर सुना दो ना, जब से तुम
Mahi ji. Okay, I think. Sorry, please go ahead.
जब से मैं okay.
We are
Okay,
all.
can you give me 1 minute? Can you give me 1 minute?
Sure,
Okay.
no worries.
Sure. Okay. So
Nitin
then,
ji, want to sing in the meanwhile?
what happened?
Do you want to sing in the meanwhile?
Urvi is going to sing, I guess, today. Urvi, go ahead, please. You think I'm a filler? I'm going to sing?
We want to hear you singing bhajan all the time. So whenever there's an opportunity, why won't we ask for it?
See, you have to give me time to prepare, okay? You've given so much time to Monica ji to prepare. Similarly, you have to give me time to prepare.
You don't need any time to prepare. Okay, Urvi is ready, it seems.
Yes, Urvi, go ahead.
Radhe Radhe, Urvi.
Radhe Radhe. Can I sing?
Yes, go ahead.
तुम मेरे थे मेरे हो मेरे
हाँ,
रहो।
जरूर जरूर.
I
Awesome.
will contribute to that as well, one line, okay? Because, sure,
Okay.
please go ahead.
तुम मेरे थे मेरे हो मेरे रहोगे, बहकूं ना अब बहकाने से, जब समझ प्रेम में डूब गई तब क्या होगा, समझाने से, तुमको ही तन मन धन अर्पण तुम ही जीवन धन तुमको ही तन मन धन अर्पण तुम एक मेरे जीवन धन अब पीछे नहीं हटेगा पग पिय विरह चोट और खाने से तुम मेरे थे मेरे हो मेरे रहोगे बहको न अब बहकाने से दे दो ऐसी विरह वेदना मिट जाए मम अहम चेतना दे दो ऐसी विरह वेदना मिट जाए मम अहम चेतना और अधिक चमकेगा सोना पुनि पुनि अग्नि तपाने से तुम मेरे थे मेरे हो मेरे रहोगे बहको न अब बहकाने से। राधे राधे।
Beautiful, Urvi. Very nice. The line I was going to sing, you already sang.
अब और अधिक चमकेगा सोना।
I think there was another line. चाहे तुम मम आलिंगन कर लो. What was the next one?
चाहे मम प्राणन ही हर लो।
चाहे तुम प्राणन ही हर लो अब पीछे नहीं हटेगा पग पिय विरह चोट उर खाने से तुम मेरे थे मेरे हो मेरे रहोगे बहकू न अब बहकाने से. Okay, beautiful question. Very nice. Okay, so with that, I think we come to the end of today's session.
Oh
Tomorrow,
no, wait.
Mahiji
Mahi,
is back. What happened to Mahiji? Is she
I
back?
don't know. Mahi ji, yeah, let me unmute her. Radhe Radhe Mahi ji.
Radhe Radhe. Okay, I'm ready now. Okay.
Okay.
I'm starting, I will start. Okay, so Radhe Radhe to everyone again, once again. ओ कान्हा अब तो मुरली की मधुर सुना दो ना ओ कान्हा अब तो मुरली की मधुर सुना दो ना मैं हूँ तेरी प्रेम दीवानी अब तो मुझे पहचान मधुर सुना दो ना जब से मैंने तेरे संग जोड़ लिए हैं नैना तोड़ दिए हैं बाबुल क्या मैया क्या सबसे रिश्ते तोड़ दिए हैं तेरे मिलन की व्याकुल है तो अब तो मुझे पहचान मधुर सुना दो ना ओ कान्हा अब तो मुरली की मधुर सुना दो ना. Thank you. Radhe Radhe.
Thank you, Mahi, for completing it. Very nice. After long, we had our devotional segment today, so that was a good segue to have. Loved it. So thank you everybody for your enthusiastic participation. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Tomorrow we are going to talk about the fuel that we need on this journey, and we'll have another interesting, engaging discussion around this topic. So Radhe Radhe from my side. Stay safe, stay blessed. Good night, good day. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Radhe
Yes.
Radhe.
Yeah, thank you everyone for joining. See you tomorrow. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.